Hello, am I audible? Okay, thanks. Yeah, sure. Good evening, everyone. So, without wasting our time, let's start the session. We first share the slide with you all. Okay, let me introduce myself to you all. I'm Sangeeta Verma with an MBA of Banking and Finance. And in the slide, you can see my work experiences with my advertising and marketing agency, bank, finance company, college, export import company, and recently I'm associated with an organization as a DGM that is also an import export company in various products. It's even imports and exports. Along with that, I'm with Learnovate as a freelancer. Okay, for today's session, the topic is employee counseling. And in this, we'll be learning counseling, need for employee counseling, functions of employee counseling, types of employee counseling, objectives, process, requirement for effective samples. And this session is very important because counseling is very you can say important. COVID is again striking out and people are again shifting to the work from home concept. So time to time motivation, interactions and everything, understanding, lowering down the stress, resolving the conflicts by staying far away and not having much face to face. We do have face to face, that is virtual face to face. So in that concept, the topic is very important and I hope you all gonna imply it if you all are like working with the some of the companies or you are all thinking to work with the company, or some of you might think that we are going to review very important concept. So without wasting, let's start. And it's a two-way process in which a counselor, where you can see a counselor may be a superior or family members if you think, or higher management, provides advice and assistance to its subordinates. And there are many occasions when an employer feels that now it's high time that we need to counsel particular of our employee, so as seeing their work output, productivity ratio, behavioral concepts in the during the work performance. So performance counseling will be mostly given to you by your superior in order to improve effect of guiding, adjusting behaviors, understanding the work concept, reducing the time consuming, providing uh, much more output, productivity high, ranging out. So that is performance counseling by seniors to the juniors. Now, if you come, it's like employee counseling may be informal or formal. Informal mostly takes place in day-to-day work relationship, because when we are like working day to day, we are learning everything, every individual we are learning new things. So that informal is in our day to day work relationship between a manager and the subordinates without any plan or schedule. That comes without any plan or schedule. But when it comes to the formal counseling, of advertising and assisting employees by their subordinates and by professional experts or counselors sometimes as per the requirement, as per the scenario of the companies. And as per employees aspect, also this plays whether you are going to hire some expert, or you are hiring some counselor, or your s- senior most person is giving you, or some some companies these days even fix a counselor at their workplace, because time to time workplace counseling is very important. So employee counseling can be helpful in strengthening the relationship between superiors and subordinates. It improves communications and helps employees recognize the strength, potential, and weakness which they might be inheriting them inside them, which is not able to come out properly. So counseling helps in that. Counseling also helps employees to prepare the action plan for their own development. Thus, counseling helps to solve employees' problem and to prevent future problems, whether that is of employee or employer. So it's both way. So it plays both curative and preventing roles. And when it comes to the contribution, no, like when it comes to the contribution of an employee, it comes with a very vast thing. Like you might see, understand after counseling, you can see a positive roles, positive scenario changes in them. Their work associated has increased, their communication ways increased. Like you will find certain changes if a proper counseling is given to you, to the employee. So it's like a process where advising an employee so as to enable him or her to overcome their emotional problem. Like if you say, then workplace counseling may be defined as their provision of brief psychological therapy for employees of an organization, where you will find that which is much more connected with the of employees and employers. So the definition mostly, if you understand it, involves that discussion in which counselor listens sympathetically to the problems of the employer or employee. It is a method where both the parties are able to understand and help. Like counselor is understanding the employee, whether that is superior or expert counselor, or a particular uh, one who is going to play as a role of a counselor on behalf of the company or behalf of the employer. So it is very important that that particular person listens the problem of the employee very empathetically, like very understanding and helping people who are upset emotionally. And so this is a, if you can say, is a 4 minute form of process of communication. So it is concerned with the emotional problem, and it has like a concern with the feelings, emotions, and thinking. All these things gets combined with it. So counseling is, if you will understand with the concept, it is a two-way process of communicating, helping each others, helping to overcome or outbound with the some of the weaknesses, realizing and understanding the strength, the potential an employee have, and even making their mind very clear regarding their own development. So this is a form of, is, you can say, it's a advertising change, helping, sharing, guidance, therapy. It's a therapy of emotional overcomings and mental overcomings. So counseling is very important. Till here, any confusion? I guess you guys have understood the concept of counseling. So let me go to the next slide. Need for employee counseling. Why it is important? Like in a picture way, you can see is like issues of your personal life affects your work life. Like if you are with your stress and frustration in your own life, then obviously it's going to hamper out your workplaces. Then comes with like help employees easily adopt the change in the workplace. Sometimes when what happens, we're working in an organization, organization and employees working out, and if you work within we could say subordinates or senior for more than 3 to 4 years, and all of a sudden that person is either promoted or shifted to another, and when a new person comes, it for that employee, if it's a senior or junior, it becomes a little bit of uncomfortableness for them to adapt that particular change of person. Sometimes even a change of office ambience, sometimes you can say a shifting of employees location, uh, office location. So these changes, whatever takes place during the work environment, when a counseling is done, it becomes easy, helps employees to easily accept that change, thinking that we are under a work boundaries, and that work boundaries does needs to adapt, to adjust, and to synchronize one himself according to the changes. So that is also a concept. And if you see like personal life, suppose you are a working person and in you come in a time, and that is like timing also while you are leaving for the position, and that is not go according to that. Exemplary example, like your any of your parent is sick, what happens, though you're like physically appeared, sometimes your mental is completely towards them, or your married life is not going properly, if your love life is not going properly, that directly or indirectly is hampering your professional life, because you might be holding some of the grudges in personal life and you're not able to empower it or vocal it out. What happens that all of a sudden when your issues takes place during your workplace, you vomit it out over there. So that's not there. So counseling is required. Like one of us in a blue moon, like for 2 years you were completely working properly, there was no issues, and all of a sudden you are like your behavioral aspect is changing. Over there, a senior, being a senior or being an HR manager, it has to strike to your mind that there is some problem that the person is reacting in that way. So your personal life has also to be like sorted out, no? People these days say no, like personal is personal, professional is professional. You are an emotional person, right? So that plays, so you need to balance between that and understand how you need to deal with that. Now if third point is mental health, like improves mental health of the troubled person, leave problems aside when entering the workplace. When your mental health is okay, like though you are disturbed, but as soon as you reach at the gate of your office premises, what happens, you just want to vanish them off for that particular time when you are at the workplace. So mental health is very important and has to be taken in the consideration during the counseling. Then the most valuable asset to an organization is its human resources. Being an employer, being in a business associate, being in any industry you have, you should always remember that the biggest asset to you is your human resource. If they are satisfied, strengthy, potential, you know, productive, supportive, understanding, and with the good mental and physical health, you have everything. So time to time counseling is needed. Now then, physical, mental, emotional, social well-being makes a perfect employee. A person has also be like thinking that just not being physical fit, but mentally also be fit in the sense of understanding what is right and what is wrong, where to act how, at what time the hardest decision has to be taken, where you have to be introvert, extrovert, or where you have to be a very calculated in a balanced way, how where you have to show your emotion, where you have to hide, where you have to control, and socially also like comfortable with every one of the aspects, being in a very adjustable way. So that is a quality of a perfect employee, and if any of this is disturbed, it becomes very important for an employer to identify and sort it out through by the proper counseling to that employee, so that you do not lose a valuable asset from your company, your investment. You are actually investing on those employees, and you do not lose it out. So that is also important. And organizational change, obviously change has to be accepted by every of the employee, every of the individual. It has to be accepted, and those changes are, you can see, a very drastic uh, upbringment, or a particular of scenario changes for the individual. So sometimes those changes are very good for your professional attire, professionally or personally, and changes has to be accepted, because we, being a human being, changes every time. I'm not saying with the some of our closest one, but how you have to react and how you have to act. So according, like if you are in a conflict, there should not be a conflict for lasting for more time, because if conflict lasts for more time, if frustration in the employee lasts for more time, and this, if the employee is stressed, what happens, your work environment becomes very toxic. And in, if it is becomes toxic, it directly or indirectly hampers all of your employee, and your productivity is been disturbed. So you have, being in proper HR, being an employee, you should think that whatever conflict, whatever stress, whatever frustration gets resolved in shorter period of span of time, and that does not hamper other individuals and other departments or our industry. So that has to be kept in a mind. Till here, any confusion? Guys, please revert me back. Any confusion? If you're not able to say, you can even write it out. Okay, then let's go to next slide. Now, as I said that human resources are the valuable assets for an organization, industry. So it's very important that those employees are happy, and become, they are social, motivated, content, like feels good at every time, and they are very energetic. So these things has to be inherent in your employees, and when any of this is not correct, you being an HR, you being an employer, have to identify. Now, how you can identify why counseling is important and when it has to be. Like you can check, you can go through the checklists. Like when unrealistic targets, you are, some of the managers have a habit of giving unrealistic target that really tries the nerves of every employee, and they keep on going on a, like on a very disturbed way, and they're not able to assess it. So do not give any sort of unrealistic targets to your employee. So if an employee is like dealing with that, obviously you can see a direct impact on the productivity of your employee work. So excessive workload, absenteeism and late coming, and if such thing happens, what happens, you will find absent, the person is absent when it is, whenever it is crucial, whenever there is a very important meeting, you'll find it. Then late coming and lack of awareness of policies and procedures. Every now and then does not bother how much policies you are keeping, how much procedures you have, they have to follow, they just keep on ignoring it. And then performance issues, slipping deadlines and career problems. So when you find these, when you see these things, you should understand the person is really frustrated, stressed out, and not in a mood of working and providing you the things. Like even they, even what they do is like they try to take the, avoid the responsibility, accountability. They do not team up with the team. I mean, spirit of uh, a team is lacking in them. They do not try to interpersonal with any of your subordinates. Like problem is adjusting to organization culture and family problems. Such things can be there, because of which an employee needs a counseling. So, and now why, if that is like that is there, then why chop down the career path, retain valuable employees, why an employer should provide a time to time counseling? The answers in a certain points over here. effective communications would be there. Growth for employees, it's not that only an organization or industry or an employer is thinking of their growth, but it is very important that they have to think for the employees growth also, and ensures the transparent environment, puts problem on the table for an open evaluation and draft resolutions, clearly define the expectations, ensures employee follow ethical standards and company rules, common culture, etc. So for the employees, also an employer also, em- employee counseling is important. Now, what are the functions of employee counseling? Like functions, you can see that when in an employee life cycle, first see the employee life cycle, what happens. You get like um, an employee an employee attracts the employee with so many things like facilities, pay scales, working environment, and all that. An employee have that expectations like, and that they get attracts, and you that employee starts working with you, and slowly and gradually development is taking, manages the development, engages and motivates itself, gets the recognition, and at the end of the is employees working life cycle, it's like forbidden the farewell wishes and then go on, right? So during that cycle time, no, a lot of things takes place in an employee's life also, whether that is personal life or professional life, and employers business, employers industry, employers attributes, even there also certain cycle is moving on and many things are taking place. So employees needs the counseling time to time in order to have a balanced personal life and professional life. Even employers need the counseling sometimes because they should understand that how to mobilize the human resource and how to understand the concept of that. So it is very important for both the part. You know what happens sometimes it's important that advice is very much required for your like it's not unreally untimely advising for or giving activity, like one of the function of counseling to like you give a counselor gives advices without being judgmental to the employee, and sort helps to deal with the emotional problems and suggests necessary course of action to deal the emotional problem, and finds out the solution combinedly and deals out with the stress, frustrations, any of the workplace issues. So employer, while going in a concept of hiring an expert counselor or in a higher management being a counselor, acting as a counselor, is very important that the cordial communication is always there. Then traumatic events, work stress, financial problems, family issues. Then you can see uh, phobias, work relationships, emotional health, personal stress, changes, physical health, relationship issues, and then traumatic events. So when all these are there, it's very important that proper advice is given, reassurance of from the side of counselor to the employee that providing courage to an individual to deal with the problem. Like in advice, you give an advice and give a suggestion, and a counselor gives an advice and suggestion, and combinedly finds out the solution about that. But in reassurance, what happens is like courage you are by a way of communication, you're providing a courage to the employee to deal with the problems and develop a confidence within. Like, if you say in an example, the counselor may say, "Don't worry, go ahead," or "Well, you are making good progress." However, the difficulty with the such assurance is that the counselor's reassurance fades away as the problems reemerges. Like despite its weaknesses, reassurance can be helpful, providing it it's handled carefully. Like reassurance, something happened and in you can do it, you go ahead with that. At that time a person might get motivated and can do. But what if in future again such things happens, you will again go and deal with the employer? No. So because an employer should always, instead of emphasizing their way of decisions or doing the act, an employer should develop a courage, strength, and potential in the employee himself or herself to deal with the any of the such situations. And yeah, employee communication plays a tremendous role, like whether that is upward or downward communication. Like it provides an opportunity to the employee to express his or her feeling to the counselor in a very cordial and in a very humble way, and a counselor has to communicate in such ways. So the counselor should also keep in confidence the identity of the employee and interpret logically the statement of his feelings. So being and keeping himself or herself in the shoe of employee who is a requirement of counseling, the counselor has to think in that way of perspective also and provide the suggestions, advice, or interprets and over helps to understand and deal with any of the work balance, work issues, or personal issues, like releasing of tension. Like what happens, like when an employee is so stressed out and seeking eagerly seeking out someone to speak up, and the counselor who is very good at the communicative way listens calmly, understands. So what happens all of a sudden when an employee will start feeling, oh, my tension is released. Yeah, I had a very tremendous session with the particular counselor and I was good enough. So the release of tension can be like frustration, a light problem might get in a relaxed way when a counselor is able to deal with the counseling problems. And clarified thinking. Counseling facilitates clarified thinking by removing mental blocks and encouraging rational thoughts. So what happens, like during the counseling process, no, the individual tends to accept responsibility for solving his or her emotional problem in a realistic way, which is there. And even sometimes what happens, when an employee who is seeking out to be a counsel session, after the counsel session is done, what happens, the employee starts feeling that I have been reincarnated. Those stress, those traumatic events, those relationship issues, those financial problems, physical health issues, phobias, all that have been like somewhere vanished out. And it feels like I have been reoriented, reincarnated, and I have been re-energized. So that sort of feelings would always comes out in a form of the functions of employee counseling. Till here, any confusion, guys? I hope I was able to make you understand. Please revert me back.
Yes, ma'am.
And thank you so much. So let's go to the next slide. Now, types of employee counseling. Yes, but when it comes with the employee counseling, that is workplace counselors rules, then there it comes out to be three steps, three types, that is directive counseling, non-directive counseling, and cooperative counseling. So what happens is like in directive counseling, what happens mostly, like your a counselor calmly, emotionally, and empathetically hears the emotional problem an employee is going through. Like if you understand and uh, very calmly, and a counselor listens to the emotional difficulty of that employee and decides with him, does not decide solely, not a employee, not a counselor. They both mutually sits along and they decide each with in a very cordial way that what can be done in order to motivate that employee who is emotionally disturbed in a way or any way of the disturbance going through during the workplace. So the employee receives advices and reassurance. His emotional feeling is released and his thinking is clarified. Sometimes you might be finding that an employee is in a very stressed out, frustrated. It's not because of personal life. Sometimes okay, it's not because of the personal or professional challenge. It might be because of the confusion, what to decide, what to do, what not to do. Sometimes even that creates a way of anxiety in them, and they're not able to give you the proper productivity. So the potential is in and the strength ever gets hampered, so at that time also it's needed. So what does a counselor does in that period of time? Here's the emotional problem, decide what the employee should do in a combined way, okay, and motivates to take the actions. And over here in a directive counseling, a counselor always plays the role of advisor, okay, in a way of advisor. Now, if you see non-directive counseling, so it's a form of counseling which is also called as client-centered counseling, like due to the focus on the counselee rather than on the counselor. Okay, so it involves skillfully listening and inducing the employee to describe his or her emotional problem so that the counselor can understand them and ascertain possible courage or course of actions can be provided by them to the employee, and the counselor listens with empathy and respects without interrupting the employee. Until and unless that particular person finishes out all, a counselor never, like interacts in the middle. So the counselor is always known to the employee like the best and qualified to solve the problems. And this sort of counseling is demonstrative but not time consuming. So you can see the opposition of directive counseling, right? Client oriented, and the counselor to understand the problem. The let the counselor to decide on what he or she should do. And instead of a counselor deciding for them, let the that counselor decide for himself. So this is non-directive one. Over here also is the same thing. Now cooperative counseling. This is an integration of directive and non-directive. Sometimes it's become that a counselor directs and says that you do this, and if these things happen, you will be in this phase. And sometimes non-directive just listens out completely what you want to do, how you want to like overcome. I can just show you the path and roads and panels. You have to climb it by yourself. That concept, when both of them gets combined, it becomes cooperative sound counseling. Like sometimes between directive and non-directive, and even like practically applicable. So it's a complete integration where it's neither entirely counselor centered nor entirely counseling centered. Rather, it requires both of them to come forward with their varied knowledge and perspective to resolve the employee's problem in a cooperative manner. So, this form of counseling is appropriate for practicing managers to help resolve day to day emotional problem of their employees. Suppose a team leader finds out, might be having 20 team members over there, and some of them are going. You have to find out, you have to figure out. Team leader has, if it is possible, by the hand of team leader, instead of hiring an expert or anything, a team leader also can play a role of counselor to them and help to overcome all those issues and those problems. So if you see Major critically in the companies, directive and non-directive. In the workplace, you'll find too much of the counseling like directive and non-directive. Why it is? Because in directive is very economical, non-directive is time consuming because it's totally client based and employee based, and emphasizes on the problems. In a directive, what is the problem that is been identified and resolved, and in non-directive, why individual is suffering in such a way has been understood, and making an individual to come out with the strength, deal with the problems, and that concept is over there. Methodology in direct and possessive is directive, non-directive is indirect. Solves immediate problems and deals with the self-analysis. Uses psychological amusement may not be use of psychological amusement. Okay, now over here, an objective of employee counseling, that also in a, what is the role of like in HR, what a HR manager can do, what an HR assistant can do for the in the phase of counseling. So need for counseling can be identified by HR as well as superior or supervisor. HR discusses the issue with the relevant supervisors and continuously asks for feedback, discusses and agree a plan of action with supervisor, schedule and jointly conduct the counseling session, concludes the counseling session with warnings if required, follow up and monitor development. Now, what happens when the counseling is time to time done to every required individual of your company? That is every valuable asset of your company whenever that is required for them. So, what you will see is like decreases the costs related to turnover. These are the benefits for the industry, for the employer, for the company. Decreases cost related to turnover or absentees, improvement in employee performance, increase in productivity, manage behavioral problems brought about by organizational change, helps in superior decision making, assist in understanding the situation more objectively, facilitates to look at the situation with a new perspective, and motivates to search for alternate solutions to problems. So what you will see is like directive counseling is it, and a proper counseling with a very holistic way counseling is given, it directly you will see or indirectly you will see that both the parties are benefited. Even employees are benefited, and then even the industry, company, or employer, whatever it is been given in that. So other than that, what happens is like it helps to like understand the employee himself or herself in a very better way, and to know their own potential strength and weakness, and to deal with the dynamics of the behavior while such feedback is given, and even to understand the work environment, the colleagues, the superiors, juniors, ambience, work culture, uh, rules, regulations, and different organizational aspects. So, and even helping them to make a very beautiful balance between personal life and professional life, personal problem and professional problems, personal issues, professional issues. So it's like a very beautiful bridge between them, and they are able to make a perfect balance. So to time to time counseling in every of the industry is very much required, because even your mind needs a relaxation, like for 4 5 months, after in a like in a year, 2 times or 3 times or quarterly, how you a company needs it, requires it, the employees criteria. In that way the company has to keep on doing the counseling session. And it's just not sitting in office and talking, it can have a variety of activities involved in them, where a counseling requirement counseling is done sometimes without sitting face to face and without acknowledging. So in such a way, what happens, it gives a very uh, uh, long time imprintment in their mind, and they are able to understand it. Now, if you go with the process, there are basically three stages of counseling, and there might be various counseling styles according to the company, according to the industry, according to the work culture, according to different things. So when it comes to the steps, it's like majorly three, divided into three stages. And like if you see, identifying the need, that is the most important. When you identify the need means a preparation stage starts from here, like supposed to prepare a base for communication. And it's very important because it generates the necessary confidence in the subordinates and assures himself or herself of the counselor's genuine interest in helping both the parties. And at this stage, the counselor should patiently and carefully listen to what the subordinate has to say and respond according to that way in a very calm way. And any movement which distracts the subordinate's attention should be avoided. So, counselors should control the feelings and emotions in such a way as to convey warmth and concern for the subordinates. So, this is the identifying the need. Then comes preparation for counseling, like intermediate stage, and in the conduct session means helping stage. It is helping stage, third stage. So intermediate stage is like you are uh, establishing a support for the employee in a role of like a counselor. You're becoming a very exploitative and understanding to the employee, and gradually understanding and mutually agreeing on any of the decision to solve out, and you're both communicating in a very open minded open conversation for anything. So the problems and the causes, whether that is the weaknesses, whether that is in way of mobilizing your skills, whatever it is, it comes out over there, and your way of understanding the scenario changes out. Now, helping stage, that is conduct the session. Over here is like you assist the subordinates in identifying the alternative solution to the problem. You are not imposing, like over whenever a counselor session is on, it's not every time imposing your decision on them. Let them understand themselves and identify the requirement and then do it. So you keep being an helping hand for the employee, that is a counselor, be an active and helping hand for them, and understanding the courses of actions, and let them decide how they want to deal with the problems which acquires or which comes during the work process. So it's completely on them, and you keep on being a good counselor. You do a follow up. So how was the problem? Was it solved? Are you all set now? I hope in the future you can do it. That sort of type of communication with the employee is very much needed. So these are the process of employees. Now when styles can be so much, you can go like sometimes it's in a workplace. No, some of the employees needs the proving, then supportive, then interactive, reflective, and evaluative. So, five styles of counseling are basically done during work environment way. So now those persons who's like thinking that we are going to become a counselor, what sort of certain skills they should have, like active listening and empathy, tolerance, very much needed in the counselor, because when you are counseling a person, when that person is vocaling out uh, emotional issues or personal issues or professional issues or self issues, you need to have a tolerance. They might sometime vocal out some of the words which you, being a counselor, you might not accept it, but at that particular phase you should understand the person is in a little dilemma or anything, or is very sad, frustrated out and vocaling out. So that is very required. Then direction. Instead of just saying do this, you show them directions. How many alternatives of directions you can show them and let them choose from it. You should respect the feelings of particular person. And self-awareness, you listen, you deal with that person. When the person is gone, just stop it out and come out of that phase, because if you start imposing the listening whatever you have done, you become much more emotional and you involved in that, you will gonna lose your self-awareness. So you need to be very aware that this is a certain individual and I'm listening out his problem and showing the directions, and I am not the one who is going to impose. Let them decide on their own. So self-awareness is very important. Then strength and balance. Strength doesn't mean physical strength. Okay, strength means having an emotional and mental strength, and you're keeping a balance in that. Even in your mental, you are balanced emotionally and feeling wise or advice wise, you are very balanced in that. And then it comes unity. Be very calm, be very understanding, right? Deal with the person, open up the conversations, open the communication, that in any sort of topic that individual can speak out, vocal out, and can take advices, suggestions, resumes, or self decisioners ones. And you are known as a that, yeah, that person, when we go and talk with that person, we become very sorted out. Our confusion has been cleared. And all these skills, when a person holds and able to give a counseling to the employees, you, if being a good ones, the changes can be truly seen in the employee. That is directly visible in their quality of work, productivity, and time consuming, how much they used to take during their work, and how serious they are, and how they are developing in their work one. So that can be seen over there. Now, when sometimes no people, they mislead the counseling with advertising done by the advising done by the counselor and physiotherapist and solving all life problems. Obviously, all life problems are not able to be solved, because even a god can't solve that. We always have some of the issues, but how we deal with them, how we see them, and how our work is seen, so is there, which we can understand now. If we are not getting out of that 2019 covid census again, see, it's like coming out that you have to work from home. So why not think it that we are not able to go and work, take it in a very opportunistic way, that the in a very enthusiastic way, that earlier when you have to report to office at 10 o'clock, you were leaving at 8 o'clock in the morning from office. So your 2 hours is the traveling is saved over here. Why not utilize or do the thing, or give time to our hobbies, and we do that, like you feel like at a very relaxed way, in a way, like you sleep at home having peaceful spine. Obviously, for female employees it might become a little bit of difficult, but yeah, they can also take it, work from home as an opportunity, especially when you can, when your work is done, your 2 hours of returning from office time can be utilized in certain other things, or enhancing your skills, um, giving time to family, or enjoying the movies, or doing or shuffling out some other things. So it is very, like, you can, sitting in a home, you can become a counselor for your juniors, those who think that when an office is going to open, when you are going to meet. So in that way you can create a sessions of self motivation, self mobilizing, and understanding, and making yourself reoriented or reincarnated. Totally depends upon you. So as I said, some of the companies, they even go with the 3 stages or 6 stages. Like some of them go with the 6 stages also. Like relationship, they first build up the relationship, then they finds out they diagnosis the issues and assessment, then they do the counseling information, then they intervene, and the problem is solved. And whether to keep the employee or keep the counselor or you need termination, or you need to follow up, you're just saying that this person can never improve and never can live it out, you're losing your hope. Or you do much more research for that particular one and come out with the new concepts. And various employee counseling even process even involves like talking with the employee directly or indirectly, focusing on behavior, enlist the employee's assistance, establish a mean of monitoring, emphasizing the consequences, or offer encouragement. Sometimes it is very needed, and with those, affecting the organizational counseling. When an organization is hiring out for the counseling, there are major things which affects. Sorry, and they are like types of problem, attitude, frustrated people, nature of the industry, willingness of the counselor, trade unions, position of the employee in the industry, social status of the employer, frustrated person, policy of the industry, government rules and regulations, ease of the employee. Sometimes ease also becomes a very difficult barrier for some of the people, where counseling becomes very dramatic way. Causes of frustrations, past experiences, durations, influencing or inspirations, informations, background of a counselor or a client, clarity of thinking, decision taking power, and attitudes of counselor towards clients, and client's attitude towards counselor. Over here, client is actually an employee who is in a very much need of counseling. And even people even they get confused in coaching and counseling. They think it's same, but it's not. So what is the difference? Coaching is used when teaching a new job skill. An employee is new to the group or department. An employee needs preparation for more challenging worker assignments. An employee needs to develop self confidence. Then coaching is done. And counseling is used when it is used, like when employee is having a conflict with the peer preparations or peer partners, then employee needs a counseling. Persistence, performance, existence problem. An employee has job related behavioral problems or attitude issues at that time. An employee needs help in setting priorities for organization, setting priorities for self. So at that time, counseling is very much needed. Now let's see some of the samples how the companies go on the process of counseling. What they do, first of them, they prepare a questionnaire sessions. Some of the companies, they go with the first page is identifying the employee who is in need. So such forms are distributed and they are asked to fill up, and certain questions are asked, and those questions are filtered out and identified who is in the need. So this questionnaire sample helps the employees to understand. Now when you go with the other things, no, even counseling is sometimes very important for uh, right focus, then desire to improve self, mutual trust developing between uh, departments, colleagues, company and employer and employee, and all the human resources, then right attitude towards subordinates and right focus. So all these are the required during the counseling session. So over here I wind up the certain points to you of the employee counseling, that is a conclusion part. Like employee counseling is the process of guiding and assisting employee in a very proper attitude, behavior and performance. Conflicts, frustrations, stress, unrealistic events, problems, they all creates mental trauma in the employee's mind, where they are not able to work properly, they are not able to give you the quality of work, or the productivity decreases. So at that time, being an employer or being an HR manager and assistant, you need to identify that particular employee is in need of the counseling. Advice, reassurance, communication, release of tensions, clarified thinking, Reorientation, reincarnation are the functions of employee counseling. Directive, non directive, and cooperative are the main forms of employee counseling. Understanding of self behavior, environment, and interpersonal effectiveness are the major and main objective of employee counseling. There are three main types of steps in counseling process, that is preparation, that is identifying, intermediate, and helping. In helping over here, it even comes a follow up also. Desire to improve, dialogue, mutual trust, right attitude towards the subordinates or the work, efforts, and right focus are the requirements of effective counseling. And when in a way of understanding the counseling is done, a drastic change in employees' behavior, employees' work, and even in the employer's acceptance of the employee changes. So for today, this this is the end of the session, and I hope I was able to make you understand about the employee counseling. And in future, I hope whenever you guys go to the sessions of your own business empire, or work as an HR manager, or acquire an industry, you're gonna keep in mind that the valuable assets, those are like HR, human resources. Your best asset for your industry, for your company, needs to be in a very calm, peace, and potential way, in a mind, in a physical and emotional way. And if any of these things are disturbed, you're gonna keep on a counseling session and never gonna lose your best employees from your company. Thank you so much. Any questions which you think you needed to ask, please come up. And I hope I was able to make you understand. Please revert it back, guys. Hello.